The oligarchy tour, the claiming that Israel has a right to defend itself, the statements over and over and over again. It's in our faces. So I didn't expect them to. They are compromised. They are class traitors. People want to, sugarcoat things, but I don't. I never did. And the truth is that AOC, Bernie Sanders, any progressive Democrat that you can think of has met, took photos with me, has shook my hand, has praised me in some capacity, and have said nothing. And it's clear as day that they ignored, unless you was under a rock, you completely ignored what happened to me, and not only just me, but six other Americans. There was seven Americans on board the Hundela, one third of the crew, and for them to ignore it and say nothing at all, it's just utterly disrespectful. Well, there's a bunch of stigmas going out there that wasn't created by us, but this stigmas that are saying that we need to sit this one out. Palestinian liberation. It's not our fight, and it's just ridiculous to hear these things. But I heard similar things when I took on Amazon. The same stigmas that keep capitalism thriving is divisiveness, creating fear and creating doubt. And they want us to be divided. They want us to sit out. They want us to not come together as people. And I said we have to do the complete opposite. We have to come together. That includes the Black community. And I tell people in the Black community all the time, our history wasn't taught to us. Trump is erasing that. You can see what he's doing with this administration. But if you look at the history, Palestinian civil rights movement always stood hand in hand from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. It has felt very much like there's a concerted sort of op campaign on social media with these accounts that say things like, "What's Palestinian ever done for you?" It's very much giving "hello, fellow kids," not a real Black person. Or sometimes they do find, I guess, real folks who are willing to express those sentiments. But I'm interpreting it as an acknowledgement of how sort of influential Black consensus is in the United States, moral consensus specifically is, and that if the sort of natural affinity that has been demonstrated historically, that you just alluded to, between African Americans and our own freedom struggle and Palestinians gets more traction and people are more aware, then that will yield an even more devastating blow to Zionism and the status of Zionism, which is already so rapidly declining in the United States. I mean, polls show it's been on a precipitous decline in terms of, I think, a plurality of Americans now look at Zionism disfavorably. That being said, I want to come back to a point that you made about the unions. You felt it was important to have American labor represented on this flotilla. So I want to ask you what the response has been from U.S. labor leadership that was so supportive of you and hugged you so close when you successfully organized the Amazon union.
Yeah, I mean, it's been um, pretty much virtually silent, with the exception of a few unions that spoke out. I saw some things, some messages were sent to me by some specific unions, like the nurses union. I saw that my own union as well put out a statement. Um, Besides that, it was very few, if not any, and that's a shame. It's a shame that most of these major unions, especially the international associations, they invited me into their homes. They invited me to their membership. I was keynote speakers for some of their conventions, for their conferences, panel discussions, workshops. I always showed up for them when they called me 2, 3 years ago, when we defeated Amazon. And it's a shame that when I came home, or even before coming home, uh, it's a shame that some of these unions since October 7th has passed zero resolutions. And not only that, they claim to be on the side of the working class when they're supposed to be the shield for the working class, but somehow, some way, they're excluding Palestinian liberation and lives. It just doesn't make any sense of how they can, not say that the blood is not on their hands as well.
Help me understand what kind of when you say they haven't passed any resolutions, what does that mean? What kind of resolutions would you like to see them pass? What does it mean for them to at very least pass resolutions?
Right. So for those who don't know, when you're in the union, these resolutions are pretty much a document that is raised by the membership, whether it's rank and file members or by some type of committee where the union is going to put out publicly and also uphold a standard based around this resolution, which is a pretty much a document saying we stand with the people of Palestine. Uh, we want an immediate ceasefire, or we want to fully divest from any deals with Israel, whether it's manufacturing weapons, whether it's representation of workers who are on the docks. These are type of initiatives that it's on paper, but it means a lot when you put it out there to your membership, to when you put it out there to the public that this is where the union is standing on these type of issues. And unfortunately, not only have major international federations and unions not passed any of these type of resolutions, some even fought against resolutions that were being presented, and some of these were simple as just saying that we need a ceasefire. So, these are the type of things that I've been calling out. But that's once again, even a resolution is just a piece of paper. That's just the first step in the right direction. What really needs to happen is the militancy that we've seen in other countries, like for example, Greece, where the dock workers are blocking the aid, I'm not sorry, not blocking the aid, but blocking the
The
arms
weapons,
that are
yeah.
being uh, shipped to Israel as well.
Yeah. So, what kind of rationale are being floated by union leadership or whatever members are pushing back against even a resolution as simple as supporting a ceasefire? And do you think that the ambivalence or opposition to passing some of these resolutions has to do with not wanting to empower workers to go on strike and to refuse to deliver weapons the way they've done in some parts of the world, as you mentioned? Are they actively afraid of not being able to prevent membership from striking in a way that I don't know? Like, what are the tensions? Do they believe that it's against the interest, the economic interest, the long term interest of the workers? What's being said?
Yeah, I mean, from what my research and what I've seen is it's really they're trying to uphold their own unions' constitutions and their history of their unions' constitution, which is most of these unions, unfortunately, they were fully um, intertwined with Israel for a very long time. Some of them since 1956. Um,
And intertwine how?
so there's labor unions in Israel, labor federations in Israel. I don't speak Hebrew, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce the organization, but you can look at the Jewish Labor Committee over here in America, which is ran by a well-known labor leader, Stuart Applebaum, who was the president of the RWDSU, who was also the international president of the UFCW, and he's also affiliated with the AFL-CIO, for example. And that relationship is still carrying on today, and that's supported by the AFT, the American Federation for Teachers Union, also affiliated by the AFL-CIO. And basically, they're allowing politics to lead the way the unions are organizing, or the direction of the leadership. It's based off of what the Democratic Party is doing. If the Democrats are calling, and we've seen this with the presidential elections. You've seen how all the major unions endorsed Joe Biden before he dropped out. Then
Mm-hmm.
overnight, without even hesitation, they all endorsed Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has done nothing, virtually nothing for the working class as far as labor unions, but they endorsed them anyway. It's the vote blue no matter who method. And because they're being led, their unions and their federations are being led by politics, um, whichever way politics are going as far as Israel, they're going to go the same way. And that's the problem that I'm seeing.
I mean, you raise an interesting question, which is, might it have been possible if unions were interested in pressuring the Democratic Party in this way for them to have applied pressure to have a convention of some kind? I mean, it's well known that Nancy Pelosi and some other quite establishment figures in the party did not want Kamala to be the nominee and wanted there to be a mini primary of sorts. And it is interesting to think about whether that would have been more likely to happen if unions had been willing to put their thumbs in the scale and say, hey, we deserve someone who's accountable to labor, not this woman who just happens to be vice president who hasn't been battle tested in any way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen it. There's a huge disconnect between not only the Democratic Party, but between the labor unions as well. Um, the union density in America is in the gutter, less than 6% in the private sector, less than 10% in the public sector. And it's still on the decline. And the reason why is because these labor unions are failing to meet, to really include grassroots movements. When you're talking about Palestinian movement, I believe, strongly believe, if the Democrats would have listened to the younger generation, if they would have listened to the working class when we were saying that this genocide needs to end now, we wouldn't see a Trump administration. But unfortunately, um, they're going with their same model, their same playbooks, and it didn't work. They fell flat on their face.
Yeah, and it feels like it's happening again. Look, I remember there was this moment where it looked like Sean Fain had delayed his endorsement for Biden. You know, this is, yeah, obviously it came, it happened. But I remember there were, my understanding of it was that there was activism among the rank and file. There was some, meeting where protesters, UAW protesters were carrying signs for Palestine and chanting for Palestine. And there did seem to be a delay that was in some recognition of the fact that rank and file wanted Biden to switch course on Palestine. And I don't know exactly what the ask was, whether there was kind of a ceasefire sort of ask, whether it was an arm embargo's ask, but it did seem that rank and file were behind that sort of an effort. And the delay for half a second seemed maybe hopeful. Like, are we living in a world where a major union might not endorse the Democratic Party as a sort of fait accompli? And of course, we know that that didn't happen. And I wonder, in a most recent episode, we talked about the push to make Gavin Newsom the great white hope of 2028. How are you looking at labor and its role in presidential elections, given what we all just experienced in 2024, not even to mention Biden and the railroad strike and all of the disappointments that happened in the last cycle? What would you like to see happening differently as we have, 3 years until 2028?
I would like to see the escape of the two-party system and what I say the two-party plantation. Um, Other countries that I've been fortunate enough to visit have multi-party government systems. They have Labor Party, they have socialist parties, they have really strong union density. You can look at the Nordics, you can look at countries like Sweden, have 90 plus percent union
Mm,
density.
mm.
And you can see that the policies in other countries are just universally better. Unfortunately, here in America, 70% of Americans don't have a passport. So, um, the propaganda machine that we are being fed, it works. It works when people don't know or experience the other side, or experience what our neighbors are even experiencing. Um, and the labor movement, once again, is declining. People can look at these victories, even the Amazon labor union victory, Starbucks, you name it. These happened 3 years ago already. And
Yeah.
we're still, till this day, don't even have a bargaining order to even negotiate a contract. And that's not because of my fault or the workers' fault or individuals who stood up. It's not their fault. It's the fault of the system that was designed not to be in our favor. And Trump just doubled down. In the first 10 days of his presidency, it's no surprise why he gutted and went after the labor board, because he knew dismantling the labor board is going to not only discourage people to try to organize, but he knew that that's a way of dismantling any type of movement from continuing to expand. So that's that falls on labor, big labor. These labor unions have been around for over 100 years. Some of these internationals. It's a shame that in 2025 that our union density is this low. And we're not even talking about the threat of artificial intelligence that's about to hit us like never before in the next few years. If not, it's already starting now. We have to stop being retroactive and being proactive. And what I plan on doing is trying to point people in another direction. I'm working on a side project, which will eventually be my main focus, is trying to create and revitalize the once U.S. Labor Party that we had.
I mean, I'm sure you've been looking with interest at what Corbyn has managed with this new party and the skyrocketing sort of interest in subscription or whatever you call it, signups to this party, but even before it even has a name. That's how much appetite there is for it.
Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn is my brother, and I campaign, I door knocked for him, so I've definitely been paying attention.
So I'd love to have him talk about the details of what he's trying to accomplish on the show because I could not agree with you more that that's exactly what needs to happen here. I am curious about the unique barriers that are presented here as you described this sort of unwillingness of labor leadership or the capture of leadership. You mentioned this Applebaum fellow. I don't know what kind of influence the Jewish Labor Committee has in these unions more broadly. But I mean, I presume you know Sean Fain, right?
No, I don't know him.
Okay.
No.
What kind of relationships do you have? Because I'm really struggling to understand the logic that's going behind these kind of endorsement decisions and the the commitment to these parties that aren't giving them anything in return, and in particular, this sort of interesting jockeying that's been happening by Sean O'Brien, who was you know flirting with more sort of conservative support in a way that a lot of liberals were upset about. But frankly, my position was, well, maybe this will incentivize them to lobby him and offer things and actually compete. And that doesn't seem to have been the case either. So I am curious whether you feel like that, Sean O'Brien, going on conservative podcasts, he spoke at the RNC, right?
Yeah,
Whether or not what you make of those kinds of moves.
I don't agree with him. I understand. I understand meeting people where they at. In that sense, speaking at the RNC, uh, maybe, maybe so. Okay, you got to talk to people on both sides of the aisle, whether you agree with their politics or not. But I would say this. They've been compromised. Unfortunately, people want to praise Sean Fain, but he's supporting Trump tariffs right then and there. That's just a no-go. 30,000 union members in Canada lost their job because of those tariffs. People don't
Mm,
know these things.
mm.
So, I always had my reserved thoughts about Sean Fain, and I never met him, never you know, never been around him yet. Not saying it won't happen. I go to Detroit or whatever soon. So it's really disheartening to see that the leadership of these unions have been compromised by, once again, politicians. Whether it's lobbying on both sides, whether it's supporting Trump's tariffs, whether it's not calling a ceasefire. I think I even mentioned this before, um, about Sean canceling on Cornel West to bring Joe Biden to the convention. That's an actual thing. So it's really calling people out, holding them accountable too. There's nothing wrong with that. And I hope to see rank and file members within their unions do more of that. I understand that the UAW has some really good resolutions that were passed uh, for Palestine that were pro-Palestine, but you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. You can't call a ceasefire and also endorse the Democratic Party, which is enabling genocide. That's just the contradiction. Is well played in our faces, and I believe once again the younger generation is not going to stand with that.
Well, this brings us to the AOC and Bernie Sanders of it all. And you've been very vocal about your criticism and disappointment that they were very willing to throw their arms around you in the context of the Amazon labor organizing. But have they still, now weeks out, not said anything at all about your detention and physical abuse by Israel?
No, absolutely not. And I don't expect them to.
Unless they were living under a rock, you can't tell me that they didn't catch wind of what was going on. So what really surprised me, that more people are not calling them out for their BS. And I'll just say bullshit. Bernie and AOC in particular, they've been traveling the country with this fake ass fight oligarchy tour. And when they're doing this tour, they're telling the crowd that Israel has a right to defend itself. That's what they're doing. So, right. So, am I surprised that they didn't speak up? Yeah. But at the same time, they're showing their true colors right to y'all. They're not my senators. They're not my elected officials. And I can tell you who mine is. Who's another POS? Cory Booker. I'm from New Jersey, so the list goes on and on. All of these politicians, it's a bipartisan genocide. We know that. We got to escape the two-party system. It's the bottom line.
You
Why not?
know, I already seen it coming from before I even left that they were already you know, their tour, the oligarchy tour, the claiming that Israel has a right to defend itself, the statements over and over and over again. It's in our faces. So I didn't expect them to. They are compromised. They are um class traitors, if you want to
Mm.
call it. People want to, sugarcoat things, but I don't. I never did. And that's not what got me to where I'm at now. I always spoke truth to power. I always continue to speak my truth. And the truth is that AOC, Bernie Sanders, any progressive Democrat that you can think of has met, took photos with me, has shook my hand, has praised me in some capacity, and have said nothing. And that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, besides the exception of Summer Lee, Rep Summer Lee, and Rashida Tlaib, um, there's been some others, I believe, that tweeted some things. Corey Bush and Jamal Bowman, I seen, and of course my friend and sister Nina Turner. Besides them, the Democratic Party, the Dems, the progressives within the party, they are compromised as well. And it's clear as day that they ignored, unless you was under a rock, you completely ignored what happened to me, and not only just me, but six other Americans. There was seven Americans on board the Hundela, one third of the crew, and and for them to ignore it and say nothing at all, it's just utterly disrespectful. And I know that people, it's not unnoticed. People are speaking out about it, and I'm going to continue to call it out. Hold them accountable as well. These people have been in office for long enough.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.